if you were waiting for the live to start, I apologize. There were some definite technical difficulties at play with getting this started today, and I'm trying to get this turned off. I had my the live feed wouldn't start for me, and I apologize because I know how frustrating that is to see that, hey, there's a live feed set, there's a live feed set, there's a live feed set, and then it just doesn't kick off. So let's get this set for all messages. So yeah, I was having some definite technical difficulties. How's the audio? I didn't want to wear the lav mic, and this doesn't seem like it's sitting quite the way I want. Let's see, can I put it this way? How's that? Let me know if the audio is weird. Audio is good. Okay, so we got two topics, not just one, two topics. We're gonna talk about a couple things. I got a bunch of knives set out. First things first, I wanted to talk about EDC fixed blades, because EDC fixed blades, a lot of people are like, oh, it's a new thing and it's so cool that there's finally people that are, and I'm gonna lower this down a little bit, the way we're at here, there we go. People are like, oh yeah, EDC fixed blades, that's a new category of knives, but it's not. Brando Picks, just hanging out with you guys. I did a bunch of job applications this morning and I'm like, I'm frustrated. Checked on a bunch of them and stuff like that. But at any rate, EDC fixed blades, not a new thing. As a matter of fact, if you were to go to pretty much any farm in the country growing up where I did, you would see somebody carrying something very similar to this every day, hence an everyday carry fixed blade. They make sense, they're more reliable, there's less moving parts, they don't get to, and growing up when I did is, growing up when I did, folding knives weren't that great. They weren't that reliable. And typically if you had a folding knife, you also were carrying a fixed blade. And most of the, I've done it again. I pulled something out for a specific thing and I moved it. But typically a folding knife that you were carrying, like my grandfather or my father, or would have been something like this. Just a simple little slip joint pocket knife. Now, I didn't take the green screen down. It'll go down this weekend. But this is what you would typically have as a pocket knife, and it wasn't for the tasks, the day-to-day tasks that you'd be doing on a farm. That's why you would be carrying something like this. A nice sized fixed blade, not a big fixed blade, something that you could do a lot of different stuff with. And if you're here, please drop a like. So EDC fixed blades are not a new thing, but what has become a new thing is the type of fixed blade that people are carrying. And I've got a handful of them set out. You guys know I designed one and things like that. So we're gonna talk about that, and we're also gonna talk about blade grinds, edge grinds, because there's a bunch of different ones out there and things like that. So it's two separate topics. So I've got this set up. We're just gonna tip you guys down and let me know if the audio changes, because we know that when I bump the cables on this, it definitely messes with the audio. And like I said, I apologize for the late start because I couldn't get the live feed to start. And even before that, it's starting later than I wanted it to, because I somehow managed to leave the transmitter for my wireless microphone system. I put it away with it on and the battery was completely dead. So I had to wait an extra hour to do that. So, but yeah, EDC fixed blades, and we're gonna turn around, but EDC fixed blades now is like pocket carry fixed blades, like this, and people carry them for self-defense and stuff like that. Now, I will tell you, they can be problematic depending on where you live and regulations and things like that. And that light is very, very bright in my eyes. There we go. So having an EDC fixed blade can be problematic depending on where you're at. Carrying a fixed blade period can be problematic where you're at. Carrying a knife period can be problematic depending on where you're at. So we're going to look at some of the nice smaller ones that are out there. We're going to talk about some other options and things like that. But then, like I said, we're going to talk about blade grinds, hollow grind, flat grind, convex, you know, chisel grind. We're going to talk about some of those and stuff like that. So, and I wish there was more people here. I was hoping I'd have more people here, but I do know that I think Tri-State EDC was live. I know he was going live this morning too. So we'll see what happens, but I'm gonna get this set so that we can turn this around, and I gotta grab my reading glasses so that I can Put those ones on, because what'll happen is I'll put these ones on and then take them off and misplace them, because when you're old like me, I've got like 8 different pairs of reading glasses laying around the house. So I'll have one set on, and then when I ultimately take them off and misplace them, I'll have this set sitting here. Actually, just kidding. But that's absolutely why there's 2 sets of reading glasses on my workbench. So let me turn you guys, flip you guys around here, and then get at the angle that I want this. This is weird because the adapter for this wants to move. Let me drop this down here. There we go. So on his lunch break, where's he working now? Do you know? Oh, so this is out for a reason. One of you guys sent me this. This thing is cool. This is part of my new rating system. Like, hey, should I pull the pin on it? This is like a little, here, I'll show you what it does. This is a, like, airsoft. It's an airsoft grenade. So it like flings a bunch of things out like that. So you would like load this from the bottom, and then you just fold these little wings back in on themselves like this. It is kind of a pain to reset everything. So, but basically, I think, are we too close? We may be too close to the work surface here. But somebody sent me this, and this is now part of my new rating system. Like, should you pull the pin on this knife? Let me lift you guys up a little bit and back a little bit. Actually, I think that's going to be a little bit better right here. Broccoli skull. You guys haven't seen broccoli skull for a while. It's been a while. So yeah, that should be good. So EDC Fixed Blades has now become a new. I know he does insurance. I just didn't know where he's working now. This is like kind of like, people think this is a new category, and let me get this one off my belt so that we can show it. That might be, we just need to pull you back a little bit. So this is my everyday fixed blade right here. This knife that you just saw pop up. So everyday fixed blades have become kind of a new hot topic. Like, people love Hot Topic. There was a bad store. That was a bad store. I'm trying to get this. I haven't done this too many times. So EDC fixed blades, like I said, if you grew up in the country, this was your EDC fixed blade. This was something along the lines of this, where you had like just a sheath knife, like an outdoor style knife. And dating back to, like, people are like, oh, EDC fixed blades is a new thing. Dating back to the frontier days, you know, cowboys on ranches, cowboys that were just roaming the country, they carried a fixed blade knife, very similar to one like this. Probably not quite as fancy, not the materials that we get on these. But this is what people think of now when they think of an EDC fixed blade. We'll get this out of the way here. They think of something like this, which I'm cool with. It's bringing back to the knife world something that is kind of just like maybe went away a little bit. I'm trying to adjust the gain on this. How's that? I don't want to get, did the volume go down a little bit? I just don't want to be in the red and be blowing your eardrums out because I talk loud. So things like this, which are just small little EDC self-defense or everyday carry, you know, general use, light use knives like this, have become really, really popular. Now, this is one of my favorite ones. This is the Acheron Knives L'Ascension, designed by, I'm still trying to get this nailed here, designed by Bastinelli. So Bastinelli Knives designed this, and it's a great, great knife. It is one of my favorite small little everyday carry fixed blade knives. That's still, guys, I apologize. I'm trying to get this like set up exactly how I want it. Small little EDC fixed blade. Great little knife, Warrenclyffe style. Sits nice in hand. You can use it for a lot of stuff, but it does come in handy if you wanted a self-defense roll style knife. You got a bunch of stuff. But the cool thing about these knives, these newer string of EDC fixed blades, is you've got more modern materials, and the sheath is what really sets it aside, and your carry options. So you can get one of these small fixed blade knives like this, which is small little EDC fixed blade. This is the Night Guard by KATSU Knives, USA made. This is a great, great little option for an EDC fixed blade that you can use for daily use because it's a nice little Wharncliffe. You can use it for stuff, but you can also carry this in a defensive role if you're a first responder, stuff like that. So these are great, but what really makes them great is all these carry options. So you've got little clips and things now that are allowing you to carry scout carry. I've got this one, which is my design that I made, which is another little Wharncliffe. This is the Sea Snake, small little EDC. And I prefer soft loops on a lot of these. This is a soft loop. Now, this knife, if you buy my knife that I designed through Artisan, it does not come with soft loops. You have to purchase these separate. But the nice thing is, they're not permanently affixed, so you can take this off of this. Like if you're not going to carry this knife for a little while and you decide that you don't necessarily want to use this mini tech lock that's on something like this, or if you don't want to use your ulti-clip anymore, which is a great, great option, by the way. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You can just swap that out because these are built for that. There's so many carry options on these that allows you to carry. Like if I wanted to carry this in my pocket, I can simply put a ulti-clip on it, which is simply a pocket clip that attaches to your sheath. So the big change in EDC fixed blades really hasn't been the knives themselves, even though there's some dedicated designs like mine, Tim's Night Guard here, Bastin over at Bastinelli Knives, his L'Ascension. It's not the design of the knife per se. It's the fact that you're able now to have a sheath that has multiple options for carry. If I decide I want to carry the scout carry, I can put soft loops on it. If I want to take this ulti clip off and put it in a different fashion, so I can put it this way, then I can have it on my pocket and it can hang down. You put a soft loop, you know, it's just multiple ways. If you decide you want to belt carry this, you can get a tech lock or a mini tech lock and put on them. The options of carry are what has really led to some big changes and people carrying a fixed blade knife. The other thing is sheath materials. Like I said, I carry this. I would not want to try and carry this knife scout carry. While this is a great knife, leather typically does not have, especially if there's not a guard snap on it, like this is why this is out, because this prevents it from falling out of the sheath. This does not have that. This is the simplest of sheaths. While it is attractive and it's elegant and it's cool, it's not something that you would carry scout carry or even have the option for it, right? It's just not something you can carry. This is a hang down belt style carry. It's the only way you can carry this. There are some companies that offer, now this is the Bark River Knives EDC2's first production run, but that's not what we're talking about. This could be your EDC fixed blade. You could carry it scout carry. The sheath is built for that. But once again, the sheath on this, if you're really moving around, you're really active at what you're doing throughout the day, this is probably not something you're going to want to carry scout carry. This will be a vertical carry. So even though they're offering you options for this, the big thing with these new knives is the material. They're the type of sheath that they're offering you. If you're not going to carry it and it's not comfortable to carry, it's something you're not going to carry, right? I should say, if it's not comfortable for you to carry, it's not something you're going to carry, which is sad. And so people will get things and then just they're stuck. I have this one out for two reasons. This knife, great sheath, right? Great sheath, great knife. You can actually put this, you can use this as a pocket clip and hang it down, but this sheath does not offer you any other option of carry, even though it's in a more modern format and material. This is the Mora Knives Companion. It's a great knife. It's also out for the second part of this video, which we're going to talk about blade grinds. Guys, my shoulder hurts, so you're going to see me holding stuff with my left hand a lot. So I can't even, like, just holding this arm out to do these videos really sucks. I suppose I could go to the side because now I don't have to worry about directional microphones and stuff. And if you're here, please drop a like. And if you really like the content, think about dropping a super chat. These sheaths have really been what has made the entire EDC fixed blade a thing. there's been a lot of people that would get a small knife like this. Ice machine's running, sorry. Our ice machine for our refrigerator's not working. We're using a little one out here. And so people would get like fixed blades that had leather sheaths and then just kind of toss them in their pockets. Or like I said, with this one, use this as a pocket clip. And for years, that's been a thing that people would do, but it wasn't the most efficient way to carry it. These heat molded plastics have really changed a lot of stuff. And then there's the fact that you can also carry any of these that are here. You could carry this as a neck knife. You could run a loop of paracord through this. This is a great size knife for carrying as a neck knife if you want. And I had another neck knife that I wanted to show you guys that really, it was a really cool one, but it was going to point out some of the problems that you have in some. Now, I don't have the problem we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I don't have with any of these knives. Let's make that very clear. Brando said he bought a new Chavez Urban EDC collab last night. Nice. But this allows you a very, very safe method of carry. It's going to protect your knife from the elements. You're not going to get there's not going to get as much sweat and stuff on the blade where you're going to wind up having rust and things like that. These are easy to maintain. You just wash them out if you need to, if like say you get salt water or stuff in it, as opposed to the leather options that are on this. If this gets wet, I got to take this knife, I got to take it out of its sheath, and I got to set aside. And you don't want to store, if it's a knife you're not carrying, depending on the material that the blade is made out of, you don't necessarily want to store your knife in the leather sheath because of the fact that leather will draw damp and it'll cause some rust. So there's some limitations. These materials are great. Now, there are some limitations with these materials as well. Carrying an EDC fixed blade with a sheath like this, it's not going to have any give. I love this knife, but it is one of the problems I do have with this is the way it sits on my belt with this particular carry option. And that means that this, it sits a little higher than I want, and then this also slides around. This is going to get a set of soft loops on it. Do you have a StreamYard to discuss knife topics with people? StreamYard's a streaming app. I don't, like this is how I'm doing my lives now. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what you mean. I have a Discord. I have public Discord if you want to do it, Bobby G. If you check out the comments section below, it says join the community. It's basically a public Discord. I keep bumping the tripod, guys. Sorry, this is an awkward way of doing it. But yeah, EDC fixed blades are not a new thing. It's just the way we carry them now. And the size factor. A lot of people are making smaller knives now, and it's a really cool thing to bring these knives to the forefront. Having a fixed blade is a great option. The nice thing about having a fixed blade is, like I said, growing up on a farm, this would have been really reminiscent of what I would have carried. Having a fixed blade has a lot of options to it. They're much more reliable. They're not going to fail. They don't get dirty internally. Like, we'll look at this one. This is a knife that just came in recently from Jared over at Neves Knives. This is a great, great knife. This is the Pharaoh Monster Glideman. You're going to see a video about that coming soon. But they do get dirty and stuff inside. A fixed blade doesn't suffer from that. The other thing, if you're working, you need to check out pocket sheaths from Oak City Leather. I don't like leather pocket sheaths. I was just saying that. I don't. Something about my sweat is really, really hard on steel to begin with. It's hard on leather. If it's made out of D2 or anything that could rust, it's going to, and I don't like the idea of leather pocket sheaths. A leather belt sheath with retention may be a little bit better, but I don't like the idea of having it in my pocket. The other thing about a leather sheath for a pocket sheath is I don't care how good the sheath is. Do you see this? That bend, right? If you're putting a leather sheath in your pocket, I'm going to tell you right now, I would not carry a leather pocket sheath for a fixed blade knife. There's no way. You sit down wrong, and depending on how sharp the point of that knife is and how much that leather gives and how far you are from, you know, how much where the bend is, you could stick that knife in your leg. I don't like the idea of it. I don't know if you know this, but in close to my pocket is a part of my anatomy I'm very, very, very fond of. This is not, okay, I don't know what your, let's do this. I don't know what part of this being a knife channel made you think that we wanted to talk about what's going on in the Ukraine or politics right now. This is a reprieve from that. No religion, no politics, no abusive comments. That's just the rules here. Them's the rules, Brum. I don't think I would want to put a leather sheath in my pocket. Even if I didn't rust, it's just the safety factor. Much more resilient, much better material for something in a pocket. That's why this has a pocket clip on it now. I can't recommend the Ulti clips more highly. They are probably one of the best options if you're wanting to carry it in pocket. You just have to be careful with some of the sheaths. You see here how close that is. If it's in your pocket, you want to be careful in and out that you don't drag your edge or bump your edge into that. It's kind of close quarters. There's not much I can do about it on this one. So, and if you guys are here, please double tap that screen and drop a like. I'd really appreciate it. This doesn't ever get carried scout carry. This just seems to be much better for me in my pocket than it does on my belt. I have carried it scout carry. It's just, this is a knife that I want in my pocket. And when you look at it here, when it drops down in your pocket and then it kind of kicks over, it's not taking up that much space in your pocket if you're dedicating that pocket to this. You're not going to have a lot of space. That's one of the problems with a pocket fixed blade. What is this? Does the karambit ring in knives hurt your fingers when striking something like a tree? I don't know. I've never struck a tree. It does have a glass breaker. I don't think that I would do that, but I don't think it would hurt your hand. So okay, so Brando, the thing with I just don't like, so if we have people here and they have differing opinions, it has a tendency to drive people off. And then, or it starts fights in the comment section. So it's just, I just don't like it. I don't want it. That's not what we're here to talk about. So a scout carry fixed blade knife for everyday carry is just about perfect. You can put it right above your pocket. You can kick it over. You can carry it. What's the brands of knives? So this is the Artisan Cutlery Sea Snake. This is my design. This is Artisan Cutlery Sea Snake. There should be a link to Artisan Cutlery down below. This is a great, great little knife. Somebody want to know the brands? We're kind of off topic. I do like to kind of interact with the chat while we're doing this. This is the TKL Knives Night Guard from Tim over at TKL Knives. This is American made, USA made. And then this one here is going to be one that's really, really hard for you guys to find. It's a discontinued model, but this was done by, so this was Acheron Knives. And it's on here somewhere. This is Acheron Knives in France, made by Viper in Italy, designed by Baston over at Bastinelli Knives, who lives in Florida. It's a truly international knife, but this is a great, great little knife. This is more of a self-defense style knife. It's basically built, I mean, you can do a lot of stuff with it, but for me, it feels like it was meant for self-defense, which a lot of Baston's knives are. Great, great jimping on this. But like I said, these are great, great options. There are a lot of others out there, and a lot of them are sold as neck knives, and the neck knives, like this would have been sold as a neck knife. My knife design was shipped as a neck knife. It comes with a chain for around your neck. I added soft loops. And like I said, the nice thing about the soft loops, I don't know what this says. It was held for review for some reason. The nice thing about the soft loops is they fit so many other knives, and they're easy to remove. All of these things, all of these carry options are really, really easy to modify. They're just, they're easy to take off, put on. You can swap them between knives. You can change configuration of things, which I think is why they're so much more popular now. Your opinions in cold steel design when Lynn Thompson left the company. The cold steel's designs really haven't changed. I figured somebody would ask something along those lines. This is after Tim left, or after Lynn left the company. It's the same design. It's executed, instead of being made in Japan, now it's made in, I think it's marked on here, Taiwan. Your opinions on Schrade fixed blade S? I have not seen them, so I really can't make an opinion on that. I do know that Schrade knives kind of weren't as popular. They weren't as good. I think that I talked with Jared over at Neves Knives. He was saying that they've started moving their production back stateside, and he says that the quality is higher. I haven't got to see them yet. So, and guys, if you're here, 85 of you, drop a like, please. It definitely helps out getting more people here. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything to double tap that screen and drop a like. So I love carrying a fixed blade. Now we're going to talk about some of the problems with carrying a fixed blade. We didn't talk about Asher knives because I don't have any Asher knives. I only talk about knives that are here typically, and they're not a pocket fixed blade. Why do you keep advertising things like knives? I'm not advertising that. I'm a knife maker, knife designer. It's the entire channel. And if you don't like it, don't watch a knife channel. Like Clayton, that's just what I got to tell you. Are black coatings on knives toxic? Do you use it for food prep? Usually it's PVD. I don't know. PVD is a process that's, what is it called? Positive vapor deposition, I think is what it's called. So, hey, watch this. Name of the knife in the middle. This is the TKL Knives Night Guard. So this is an everyday carry use knife. Wharncliffe blades are really, really good for everyday use, for just cutting up boxes, things like that. Any of the things that you would typically do for a day. Same with this. All three of these, as a matter of fact, are Wharncliffe. The one I designed, when I was working construction, I realized that this was a very, very good design to have on a construction site. And I had made a couple customs. There were a few customs that I made, and they were really elaborate. And I had one that had just gotten, it was just the basic knife. So what I had done was I had just made plain handles, plain blade. I hadn't done any finishing. And I talked to the guy I was making the knife for. I was like, can I just do the knife plain and then sharpen it and carry it? Because I want to see, like, it just seems to me like I was doing construction time. It seems to me that would be a great knife. And I carried it for a few weeks, and then I was like, yeah, I really think that this is a design that I could get done production that would be beneficial to a lot of people. And so then I took the knife back and I did all the finish option. I took the handles off and put the new handles on and got the finish on it the way that the customer wanted. And then I was at a knife show and I approached a few companies. I had a finished custom that was on loan from a friend of mine, and I kind of just shopped it around, artisan bit, and they wanted it. And when I was doing construction, I realized how hard it was to manipulate a knife with a lock. Like, say like this, a knife with a lock, it becomes exponentially more difficult to manipulate that knife if you got gloves on. So that adds time. And on a construction site, if you're working, time is of the essence. You've got to get all these steps done. So to take your glove, if you use the knife, you have to take your glove. Sometimes you got to take your glove off to open it. You got to take your glove off to close it. You got to have your glove off to use it, and then put it away. You're wasting a lot of time that could have been spent doing the work at hand. And I was like, a small little fixed blade and this is small. To put that in perspective, this is not a real big knife. This is a very small fixed blade. It was just enough to do things like cut visqueen, to cut tubing, cut any of the things you need to do on a job site. And the fact you didn't have to manipulate the lock, you got that on your belt, it's out, you use it, you put it back, or you've got it out, you set it down, you use it, you set it back down, and then you pull it back out. Absolutely absolutely very, very useful. And all of the ones that I made, the customs, they came with soft loops. So I decided to get that done. So there's a lot of things to be said for carrying a small fixed blade. Now, there are some things that are problematic, and that's where you get into knife laws. There's a lot of places, like here in San Diego. I live in San Diego, California. I can carry this anywhere I want as long as it's uncovered, it's not concealed. Like I can carry this anywhere I want. These, not so much. This I carry in my pocket. Now, I'm not saying that I don't disobey that rule, but the fact is I'm not a criminal, so therefore I don't foresee me getting stopped because somebody's not, and most people aren't going to say anything about it. This one's scout carry. It's going to be it's going to get covered a lot of times, and I don't necessarily want to have to untuck a sweatshirt or something to carry this. So if I'm going to carry a fixed blade, typically it's going to be in a drop sheath like this. And nobody ever says anything about it. Yeah, Brando, I agree. I agree. So, and there's 144 of you here, only 12 likes. Please drop a like. So there are some issues with carrying a fixed blade, an EDC fixed blade. You can get yourself into into a pickle with some of these. But as far as functionality, having a fixed blade is always going to be the best option. This is an incredibly good knife, and I wish it wasn't discontinued. I really wish that this knife was not discontinued. You can every once in a while still find them places, but this is a great, great knife for a lot of things. Not just, like I said, this is kind of built for self-defense because that's what, that's what Bastion makes. That's just all his designs are like that. But when you get down to it, this is a great knife for a lot of day-to-day tasks. Opening boxes, cutting things out, things like that. It's in a really good steel. This is in N690 CO, which is a steel and a great, great steel in my opinion. And micarta, you could make an electrician's curving. I'm looking at a line. Yeah, so Wharncliffes are really good. Sheepsfoot would actually be a better option of that. So a Wharncliffe typically has like a slender, more piercing tip. A sheepsfoot comes down and then it's just basically blunted and it has that really straight edge. I have an electrician's knife somewhere from being in the military. Electrician's knives were, a lot of us carried them because they were nice. That was from Camelus in New York. Brandon on the go. Hey, Crazy Sharp. Hope you're well. The streams have been dope lately. Good day, Brandon on the go. Good day to you too. Bobby G. Blades made in Japan, Italy, USA. Comparisons. Which country makes the best quality steel? It's not so much that any country makes a better steel than others. Certain companies make better steels. There's some really good Chinese companies out there that Chinese manufacturers that are using Chinese-made steel that's just amazing. So there's not any one country. It just depends on what you want from the knife, what you want to do with the steel, what your requirements are, and it's just there's a lot of stuff at play. This is the TKL Night Guard. TKL Night Guard. You can go over to TKL Knives and send them an email and tell them I sent you. But this is the TKL Knives Night Guard, and you build your own design. Basically a custom knife. These are not that expensive. They are not that expensive. These are under $300. What's in my pockets? My favorite knife of all time currently this is in my pocket every day. So this is the Microtech Amphibian. This has taken the reigning crown from what was my favorite knife, which still is one of my favorite knives, which is the Grimsmo Norseman. So this is a great, great knife. Love this. I had one of these come in for review. I liked it so much that I sent that knife back to the guy that sent it to me and bought my own. So awesome, awesome knife. This is in my pocket. It's not in my pocket right now because, well, I took it out because that's where the microphone attachment was originally hanging. So in my opinion, Waranclos are the best self-defense. They're just, I think Waranclos are just one of the best all-around shapes, period. So, and I mean, you can EDC carry almost any fixed blade. I carry this one, not even trying to joke with you guys. I carried this one. I was wearing this when I went to Home Depot the other day because it just was on my belt. Because like I said, California, I can carry pretty much any fixed blade I want as long as it's not a dirk or a dagger. I can carry this anywhere I want. This is the R1 Military Classic from Cold Steel. I absolutely carry this so much, especially when I take the dog for a walk at night, because this is a very good knife. We have coyotes and mountain lions. I want something with a little bit of reach. I want something that I can, you know, carry and protect myself from a coyote or a mountain lion when I'm walking the dog. So depending on where you're at and what you're looking for to carry, there's so many options. Now, I can't carry this because this falls into that dagger category. This is the counterattack too. But this is designed as an EDC fixed blade. So, I mean, every fixed blade, when you get down to it, every fixed blade is designed to be carried every day. Like I said, my favorite one, I carry this every day. So, like, it's a weird category of things that people think are a new topic, but they're not. Please, guys, drop a like. I can't believe that there's 156 people here and you haven't double tapped that screen to drop a like. It gets more people here. The more likes you drop, the more people show up. So that you guys know a little bit of history on this was, this design exists because I made this design for my daughter, which then in turn turned into this, which is coming soon. This is my prototypes. This is my prototype for my folding version of this knife. So lots of cool stuff coming. Pinkerton has some new small fixed blade that's similar to the furthest left. This one, yeah. Dirk is a friend of mine. I'm gonna reach out to him and see if he'll let me borrow one. I hate reaching out to Dirk. I'm gonna tell you just a little knife maker thing. So Dirk Pinkerton is a knife designer, and he is awesome. And I every time I've asked Dirk to see, like I was like, hey, send me a prototype. I'm not trying to get a free knife. Every time I've reached out to Dirk to get a prototype or something he's carried so that I don't, because I don't necessarily want to eat into his profits, he's sent me that knife. And so I have kind of avoided asking. Brandon on the go. Is that a pirate joke? First day with the hook. Yeah, I do know that he has a knife kind of similar to this coming. And you can't argue, it's a great design. When I first got it, I didn't think, yes, you're right, Bobby G. I didn't think I was going to like this when I first got it. This was a gift from one of the paying members on the channel, from Winston Cobretti. And I didn't think I was going to like it because of the way it was shaped. And so, because it's so curved, and it felt weird in my hand at first until I got it in hand and I really locked up on it. And I'm like, oh, that is super secure. And then it's got jimping that runs all the way down. And it's just a really good blade shape, blade design. It's nice and compact. You can do so many things with this. So, yeah. Anybody got any EDC fixed blades that they like to carry? Because like I said, I've got a ton. I carry so many fixed blades all the time. Like, especially if it's in, like, if it's comfortable, I don't know, knives a piece. If it's a comfortable sheath, typically you're going to carry it. So, you know, I carried this a lot. I carried this, at one point, I carried this in the military because I didn't like any of the knives they had issued to me. And it was in that size range and thing that I liked. So this is, you know, if you've got a comfortable, that's the big thing, is the comfort of carry. I've said this a bunch of times. Comfort of carry, comfort in hand, is one of those big things. If knives are tools, and if you have a tool that's not comfortable to use, and it's not comfortable to carry, you're going to shy away from that tool. So it makes it weird when you have all these knives that come out and the sheaths are just uncomfortable and things like that. And I was like, or little elements of the knife that like, this could have easily been an uncomfortable grip on this knife, but it's not. Tim did a really good job. It's comfort in hand, really, really big element. Comfort of carry, huge element. You put those two together, if you have a knife that's comfortable to carry and comfortable to use, you're gonna carry it. And I carry this so much, but I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, this winds up in my jacket pocket. If I take the dog for a walk, this winds up in my jacket pocket because it's that easy to deploy. That's the beauty of a fixed blade. They are that easy to deploy. What's your opinion on the USMC fixed blade with the rat's tail tang? I don't like the K-bar. I never have. It's an iconic knife, but I will say there's a lot of knives with a rat tail tang or hidden tang. Are they as strong as a full tang? No. Are most people going to put that knife through the paces that you would need to break that rat tail tang? No. Because the fact is, most people aren't really, really pushing how hard they use a knife. I've been known to, and I've broken a lot of knives. I don't anymore. Are they as strong as a full tang? So for those of you that don't know, full tang means this basically is one piece of steel that then they slap handles on, right? Full tang. Full tang. This one that I made for my daughter, it's pinned on, handles are pinned on. That's what full tang is. Like, so it's just one solid piece and then the handles are on top. What he's talking about is something akin to this, where the blade comes down and there where it meets the handle on this one, you can almost see it, right? You can almost see. Now this has a wider tang than most, but then it cuts down and it's a much smaller piece inside, right? So it's not full tang, it's what's called a rat tail or a hidden tang. Sometimes they're capped on and screwed on. I'm trying to think if I have one of those anymore. I don't think I do. I don't have a knife that's built like that anymore. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Here we go. Now, this is another way to do it. And you can see where that's cut down and then there's a piece that goes down through here and then this is screwed on. That's your typical thing, like it's a threaded end, and then another type of is just the hollow handle style knives. And I have a movie replica. So it's inside this one, because this is hollow. So basically there's a piece here that threads in and then there's a nut on the bottom of it. This is one of those Rambo movie replicas that was a gift from a friend of mine. But there's a lot of different ways of doing it. But full tang's always going to be the strongest. But like I said, for 99% of the people in the world, okay, let's say like 50% of people in the world, a rat tail tang and a full tang is not going to make a difference to them. Bobby G, do you recommend the SE fixed blades? The SE fixed blades are a great, great knife. There's some other options that, like, the problem I have with the SE fixed blades, they're really thick. They're brutally thick. And yeah, you can beat on them and stuff, but for me, something more along this profile, which it looks a lot like just a steak knife, like a more robust steak knife. This is probably something that's going to fit my needs better because it's just going to cut better. Right? This is just going to cut better. And at the end of the day, that's what 99% of your knives on the market are made for. Every once in a while, you have the oddball that this is just meant for letting the air out of things and possibly people. So the SE knives are incredibly well made. Incredibly well made. But for me, if I wanted something, I would not buy an SE for bushcraft. I would probably be going like more towards Bark River knives because of the blade profile and the way they cut, and just these were meant more for the day-to-day bushcraft tasks. Arno Bernardo does make, Arno Bernard makes some really good fixed blades. I've seen him. Some of the knife handles look slippery when wet. They really aren't. So this is wood. It might feel slippery, but it's not. When your hands are a little bit damp, it's natural material. This one is micarta. Your handles get on it, it looks shiny and it kind of buffs up. But when your hands are wet, these natural fibers inside the micarta do swell up. It's not. It is absolutely not slick. So it looks like it, but this is linen that's layered with epoxy. And when it gets wet, those natural fibers swell up a little bit. This is also micarta. You can see it a little bit more clearly. Very, very good handle material on this. This is G10 and it's textured, so you still get a fairly good grip. I will say, the carbon fiber that I put on the handles of my daughter's knife does get slippery. And this isn't, I didn't polish this one to a real high polish anyway. So it still has some grip, but if it's wet, it does get slippery. It's like plastic. This one, a little bit maybe. These two, not at all. The only reason this looks slippery is because it gets carried a lot, and so it gets kind of a sheen to it. But like I said, when it gets wet, let me see. Can you hear it? It's not as polished or anything like that. Using paracord dipped in, I don't like paracord handles. I don't find them to be comfortable. I don't like cord wrapped handles as much. They are not as comfortable for me as others, Bobby G. What is your Knives and Pizza? What is your opinion on TRC knives? Are they worth it? I've had a TRC knife here, and it was incredibly well made. It's probably one of the most perfect blade grinds I've had. So I would have to say, yeah, they're probably worth it. I do know they're a little bit pricey. They're not like ridiculously expensive, but they are a little bit more pricey than some of the other knives. And I'm going to tell you right now, having been a knife maker, you really start to appreciate that perfect edge, that perfect grind, and not having inconsistencies from side to side. I've had some very expensive knives that have that problem. So I'll turn you guys back around. We're gonna just bend you guys back over here. Bend you all over. So yeah, the TRC knives that I've gotten handle have been pretty much outstanding. So no, I mean, this is a subject that we could, we could talk about fixed blade knives all day, but I also wanted to talk about the second topic today, which is blade grinds, because there's a lot of them out there, and I have some different ones here, and I have some multiple examples. These two go together. This one's here. These two go together. Now I had an, oh, it's right here. This one's going to be off to the side. So the blade grind, the type of grind, TRC is the best quality production knives in the market. Absolutely talk. I won't say that they're the best. Like, everybody has their biases. I will tell you, there are some fixed blade knife making companies. There's some fixed blade companies out there I think do better jobs, and it's not necessarily, and the reason I say that is TRC's heat treat on their M390 I don't agree with, having been a knife maker that made knives in M390 and its analogs. I don't agree with the heat treat, so therefore I'm going to say that, yeah, it was an incredibly made knife, but I don't think that it's the best, and simply because of that heat treat. And hang on a second, guys, my daughter is sending me a text. She had a midterm last night. I'm trying to see if she's telling me that she got her score. Oh, no. She's just reminding me that I have to pick her up tonight at the campus because she has to stay later and she's going to miss the last trolley. So blade grinds are a very, very important thing. Blade grinds are going to make or break the knife for you as a user. There are some blade grinds that just aren't meant for some people. Now, the most common blade grind you're going to see on a knife is a flat grind. This is a flat grind. Comes down. We're not talking about blade shape. We're talking about how it's ground from the spine down. Now, this is pretty much a full flat grind. It's almost full. It's got a little bit of a spine here, but it comes down and it's a flat grind. Now, this is going to be for almost every task. This knife is going to meet the requirements for pretty much every task. And that's why it's the most common. It's also the easiest to get right every time, because basically you get your angle, you can put these in a jig, you get your angle and you just set this against the grinding belt and you don't have to worry about doing anything else. They stay flat, they stay true. If it's a nice broad blade, you can get a very nice thin behind the edge profile as you get in this KATSU Knives Django. There's a reason that they are so popular. There's a reason that they're so predominant, is because they meet every task almost as well as any of the other blades, right? The thing about a flat grind, and I have another flat grind here. And guys, if you're here, please drop a like. There is almost 200 people here, but only 25 likes. It will bring more people. It will be the milkshake that brings the boys to the yard. This is another flat grind, and actually it's a flat milled, because this is it's the Lamia by Steingraber Performance Knives. And this is brought down super, super thin. He did such a good job of getting a nice, super thin behind the edge profile. As a matter of fact, I did a video with this knife where I took the edge all the way off, and it still cut cardboard from here to Christmas all day. I don't like serrations, Bobby G. I'm not a serrations guy. You won't find, I think I maybe have one knife that is serrated. It's this one, and it's just because it was sent to me by a subscriber, and it was stupid cool, and it's a really rare knife, and therefore it's still here. I don't like serrations. They don't get me where I'm going. I don't like... They rip more than they cut half the time, and they're hard to take care of. But this is Alex Steingraber's folding knife, the Lamia, and the flat grind on this, or flat mill, I should say, comes down really, really thin, and it cuts super, super well. The problem that you do run into with flat grinds, and a couple of the other grinds we're going to talk about, is that over the life of this knife, you're going to have to resharpen it. And as you're resharpening it, that progressively gets thicker. The further you come back here, the thicker that steel gets. So to account for the thickness of, what's the blade material? None of these are D2. This one is in Elmax. This is in Crewwear. M390, S90V, this one is in VG10. I really don't like D2 because it rusts. It's a good steel, but it definitely rusts some. So does Crewwear, but I've been successful with keeping the rust off of these. So the problem with some of these, with the flat grind is, you've got the bevel here, but as you come back, what's going to happen is that material this thing slices like crazy, right? If I carry this for the next 20 years and I use it and I sharpen it and I use it and I sharpen it, which is probably not going to happen because I've got like 500 knives, so it's not ever going to get enough use that I have to do it that much. But what's going to happen is you start out here, but then as you come back, you're getting into thicker material, and then your edge gets blunted, right? So to account for that, you then have to continually change the angle of this and thin that angle back and remove more material back behind the edge, and then your bevel gets wider to account for the continuous thickening of the steel, the material, right? You have the same problem with this blade, which is, we're going to talk about in a minute, but this is a convex. And you can see this blade is radiused all the way. So it's like an axe blade grind. The whole blade is radiused. You have that same problem here. And you can see I've sharpened this a couple times. I'm testing it. This is my prototype. But we're going to talk about why this is so good in a minute. There are ways to overcome that issue. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But a flat grind works so well for so many people because it's not as difficult. You don't have to have the special tools you need to make it. You don't have to have a specific type of grinder. You can just use a flat grinder. You don't have to have specific contact wheels. And it's very easy to get a consistent knife, especially in a jig, because like I said, you're just up against it. You can account for the thickness in this blade if you don't mind sacrificing the finish. You can lay this, and I've done it before with some knives, you can lay the entire blade on the stone, Murray Carter style, and just remove all the material down and continue to just thin the entire grind down. Now, it's going to be ugly. It's going to really ruin the finish, which a lot of people really put a lot of stock in how their knives look. Not me, I use knives, but you can do that. And then you remove the material here and then you resharpen and then you still have a nice thin knife. You can do that, but the problem you're gonna have is you start removing material here, your tip's gonna look weird, it's gonna change the overall profile of the knife. It's going to change something, right? So a flat grind it's gonna last you a long time, but if you use your knife daily and you sharpen your knife weekly, it's gonna cause some problems. I had many knives since I was a kid. Success for your channel. Thank you very much. I'm not gonna try and, Andre, I'm not gonna try and pronounce your entire handle because I will screw it up. But it is one of those things that come with a flat grind. With pretty much all of these grinds, save one. And we'll go ahead and talk about the rest of them, and then I'll show you the one that does alleviate this issue. Is there a certain degree I like to sharpen my knives? So Jeff, I have been sharpening knives professionally for about 20 years. I've done it for customers, I've done it for companies, I've done it for custom knife makers. There's companies and knife makers that will send people my information as a knife sharpening service. I don't necessarily measure the angle. A knife is going to tell you, like I can put a knife on a stone and pretty much figure out what angle it needs to be at, just having done it so many times. But there's like little guides, you know, the thinner the edge is, the more it's going to slice, the less resilience you have. You kind of find that happy medium. There's charts that will show you like what angles are going to be best for different knives. And when I said that there's a couple knives that alleviate the problem you have with the thickening of the blade. Now we're going to talk about a blade grind that I'm not such a big fan of. I like the knife that it's in. How do you sharpen a curved blade? You got to have a narrow stone. So on a blade like this, you can't use a flat stone because what'll happen is you only hit these 2 points. You can't use a broad flat stone, I should say. What you want is a smaller stone that's small enough to hit all of those, like a 1/2 inch, which is what I use. I mean, let me see, can I get to? I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about if you guys can. So that's a 1 inch wide stone, and I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. If I set this knife on the stone, you can see that there's a gap where you can see that shadow or you can see light underneath. You gotta have something that will get in that gap. Some people like to use a rounded stone. I personally find a flat stone like this that's 1/2 inch. So instead of being 1 inch wide, it's a 1/2 inch. It gets into that curve. That's your big thing. Or you can use, some people will use, now I don't have any of them. Some people use rounded stones, but just an example, this is a ceramic rod. This would work too, but you don't get as good of a finish. Any recommendations for machines? I don't like most of the machines. I don't like most of the fixed blade systems. If you're willing to cough up the dough for it, Bobby G, if you're willing to cough up the dough, the Tormac, for as long as you're not trying to do recurves, the Tormac is probably about the best system out there. After that, there's the I can't think of, there's a handful of them out there. Jared over at Knives Knives has some recommendations for those as well. The triangle recurve stone for recurves, I like the Spyderco ones. I actually, you know what? I do have. Someone sent me this. I do have a round stone. This is a round stone that you could use for on recurves if you wanted. But the problem is you don't get as fine of an edge because your contact area is so much smaller. So you wind up putting more pressure on the blade than you need to. And guys, I keep saying it, please drop a like. It's the best thing you can do to get more people here. And getting more people here gets us a more robust comments section. Next grind. Actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll save these two for last because they both kind of eliminate the issue of the blade thickening. Of all the blade grinds, I have to say I think this is my least favorite, and it's the saber grind. Even this has got a little bit of a hollow to it. It's still a saber. And what happens is it's pretty thick to begin with because it doesn't transition very far. The best edge and cutting capability you're going to have is something that transitions nice and thin. The broader the blade and the broader the grind, the better overall cutting you get because it allows that to thin. The broader the blade, the more time you have to transition down to a nice behind the edge thickness. On this could have been like a really nice full flip, and I understand why they did it because it's the overall shape of the blade. And then this is hollowed, which does eliminate some of the problems, but you don't have a lot of distance from the origin of the grind to the edge to thin that material, and you can really see it here. Now this, I put a broad bevel on this to try and thin that edge down to give it the best capability to cut, and it is a buzz saw. But if I carried this and used this every day, which this is not a knife that you're just going to do a lot of cutting with, this is more of a self-defense grind, a self-defense style knife. It's a resilient. So what's the strongest grind? It depends on what you're doing. Like, I got news for you. I don't see a big difference in strength between a flat grind and a saber grind. Even though it's thicker behind the edge, even that material is thinner, it's still steel. So this is a saber grind, so it doesn't have as much time to transition. Even though it's a hollow, like I said, it's a hollow saber, it's lightly hollowed, which means that material stays thin behind the edge, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But it's thick, and so this doesn't cut anywhere near as well as this knife does. So having that grind like that for some things is great. It's strong and things like that. And I think that the strongest grind is not, this has a cousin, which is probably the strongest knife grind out there. And we're going to talk about that shortly. So you get a lot of resilience, you get a lot of rigidity in that edge and in that blade, but it doesn't cut as well. Talk about the tip, talk about tip geometry. We're not going to talk about that right now. You get on this, the reason that this has a swedge, so what he's talking about is that on a saber grind, there's a lot of material that's left at the tip. You can see how thick the blade stock is still at the tip. So what they do is they put a swedge on the back to eliminate that. So you still have a really strong reinforced tip, but now you've removed enough material close to the tip to make it a little bit more piercing. That's why daggers are so effective. That's why that double-edged grind is pretty predominant. But this is a big fixed blade with a saber grind, and you can see you got a lot of weight behind this, so it's a good chopper, but it transitions. Even though it's nice and sharp, it is a very, very sharp, very nice knife. You can see how thick that stock is behind that edge. It's not going to be great for slicing. For chopping and things like that, camping, which is what this is for, it's great. It's going to be resilient. It's sharp enough to get what you want done. But over time, you've now got no way to thin that. Once you get past about here, that knife is basically a relatively sharp club at that point. So as much as I like this knife, I mean, I would never use this enough to need to sharpen it that many times. This came from the company. This thing's heavy too, boy. That is a big chunk of steel that has had very little material removed. But you can see kind of what Bobby G was talking about. See how thick the tip on that knife is? If you need to pierce into something, it's not going to work the greatest for you. Saber grinds are my least favorite of the grinds. They do have their place. Like I said, for an outdoors knife like this, that you want a lot of weight behind that edge, might be exactly what you want. I'm not going to say that this is not going to perform the way I want. And the steel and heat treat that are on this from the company it's from are going to be really good. So for chopping and things like that, probably not an issue with this. However, it just depends on, okay, Bobby, so any steel can, as long as you do the heat treat properly, I'm sorry, any steel could work really well. This is an AUS 8, and it's from KATSU Knives, and they've done a great job with their heat treats on everything I've seen so far. But a saber grind just is not going to be my preferred. It's not going to be what I set out after. The only reason that this knife is here is it was a gift. And I do love the police model. I could have gotten a full flat grind on this. Now, I did see somebody asked what the PM2, the Spyderco PM2, and they're by default, it's Big Brother, the military. These are full flat grinds. So, and that does have beeswax all over it because Crewware is a rust-prone steel. So is the PM2. As you can see, it's ground all the way, full flat grind. It's not just a flat grind, it is full flat. You can see where the origin of the grind starts all the way back here. So that's the fullest of full flat grinds you're gonna find right there. You should check out the Cold Steel Large Voyager. I don't like some of the Cold Steel Large folding knives. They're just too big. I think this is about as big of a folding knife as I want. If I want something that big, I'm just gonna get a fixed blade. So Spyderco is distal tapered as well. Yes, very well. For most flat grinds, you are going to have a distal. That's the thing about flat grinds. Any flat grind is going to have a distal taper. Like you would have to go out of your way to not have a distal taper. You would have to try very hard not to have a distal taper on a drop point flat grind. It just happens with that. As you see, this material is ground down. As you come down towards the tip, it's going to taper. That's what a distal taper is. Almost all full flat grind knives are going to have, and that's why this isn't a full flat grind. It's a flat grind, but it's not full flat. You can see that there is an area here, but this still has, from here where that starts, it still has a distal taper. Flat grinds have a distal taper. Full flat grinds have a much more pronounced distal taper. So, I mean, having been a knife maker and all the knives I made were full flat grinds, every fixed blade knife. Now, I did go out of my way to do some stuff to make the tip a little thicker on some, you know, you can adjust how you grind and how much material you remove. But I was making fixed blades for military guys. I knew the guys I was making knives for, and I knew that needed to be something that they had, was a stronger tip. So there was less of a distal taper on those. So yes, that is an element of flat ground knives, especially full flat ground knives. Okay, so Bobby G, this is, so Bobby G asked about if this is a military knife. So somebody asked Sal Glesser if his son joined the military, what knife would he want him to carry? And he designed this knife based on that question. So there's your answer. Is it a military knife? No. Was it designed for what Sal would have wanted in a folding knife if his son was in the military? What's your favorite folder with a strong tip? It just depends. Like this, so we're going to talk about this next one after we finish this, and it's got a really strong tip. Do you have the most useless knife? No. Yeah, I do. I do own a Benchmade. This is just ridiculous. This is a flat grind that just really missed the mark. It's too narrow. This should have been a hollow. That is a Benchmade, which means it's probably the most useful. Which black? This one right here? That is the cold steel. We're going to talk about that one in a little bit. This is the cold steel counterattack. Cold steel counterattack boot knife. Oh, this one was out. This is a knife. You guys are going to see a video about this. I'm going to do a video about this. This is, I have a Shirogorov here, and we're going to do a comparison because I think that this is a more comfortable knife than the Shirogorov. Their grinds are bad too. So the next one we're going to talk about is an incredibly, incredibly robust blade. And I only have one. And it's a Scandi grind. Now, Scandi grinds are really popular in the bushcraft community because they offer you the best of both worlds. You have an incredibly strong tip because all that material is still there. You have an incredibly strong edge because this is a full zero grind from here to here. Scandi grinds come all the way from the origin of the grind to the edge, which means ridiculous sharpness. But you also have the strength. This is one of the strongest edges out there. So it gets you kind of the best of both worlds. Scandi grinds absolutely are about the best of both worlds. You have a nice thick material, kind of like a saber, but you don't have a secondary bevel, so you don't worry about that. So when you sharpen one of these, you sharpen this entire thing. So as you're doing it, you're still removing the material. The problem is you do wind up with some inconsistency side to side, depending on how good you are at sharpening. And the tip on it is not as, I got to watch because this thing is ridiculously sharp. They're not as, they have a piercing tip, but they don't pierce as much. So if you want something that you're going to be stabbing into things and using it that way, this might not be the knife for you. But these things have the cutting power of a laser when you get to it. For cutting meat, I don't know what it is about it. I do know. It's really similar to the next grind we're going to talk about. It comes up and then this pushes material out of the way. So if you're cutting meat, it just pushes the material out of the way. And I think secondary bevel would be a lot stronger than a regular Scandi. But they don't slice as much. I don't really think it would. I mean, you can. This one's been stropped a couple times, so it does have a tiny bit of a micro bevel on it. You can kind of see there, but that's just from stropping. But when it's sharpened, I don't put a secondary bevel on it when I'm sharpening. That's just remnants of having stropped just the very edge, the very front edge, as opposed to not stropping the entire thing, because it's so much easier on your strop. These are one of the best outdoor knives you're going to get, is a Scandi grind. Scandi grinds are super popular. Like I said, they're similar to a saber, just without the secondary bevel. It just goes all the way to the edge. You can easily take a saber grind and turn it into a Scandi. You really can. Like, I could easily just put this on the belt and just remove the material all the way down until I form a burr, and then do the final work of it on stones by hand. So they're very, very similar to each other. But you want to talk about such a strong edge. Yes, you should. You should get one of these. If I had to pick a knife, a Mora Companion would be my knife. Like, if I had to pick a knife that was the last knife I would ever buy, it would be the Mora knife. Now, their knives, their carbon steel knives, are great. I love them, but they do rust. So you can get a stainless version, and you can get these. I don't know what their carbon steel is per se, but I think their stainless is 12C. So and even their stainless is really good. The sheath mounting system is great if you don't want something you can carry, scout carry, and you can attach these to each other. So 12C is a great steel. I just think that the steel on this, I mean, for me, I don't like the garber. The Garberg is not the one for me. So opinions may vary. For you, it's probably the perfect knife. For me, it's not. It's not as good. And guys, please, seriously, double tap the screen, drop a like. That's all I'm asking. I'm not even asking you to drop a super chat. Dropping a like is free. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, Bobby. But there's not too... This is just a better knife for me. Mr. Joe, Mojo, do you like liver? Because I love liver. You might not like liver. I'm just saying, this is better for me for what I want in a knife. I don't like the Garberg as much as I like this. It's all about opinions. We're not talking about the knife itself. I'm talking about the grind. You remember the Peacemaker 2 from Cold Steel? I do. I had a Peacemaker 2, and I didn't like it. What was this? Are more a handle slippery? No, this is very good textured rubber. It doesn't at all feel sticky. It doesn't seem to break down. I have had a couple of these because some things, this is not the same type of rubber that some other companies use. This will break down and get sticky if you get certain things on it. But they're also like under $30. This is like a $20 knife. And you get some serious bang for your buck with a Mora. You really can't. I mean, it's just one of those. This is one of those knives you just cannot beat, especially at the price, functionality, things like that. And the nice thing is they're easy to give as gifts. I should have put this in my knives as gifts thing that I did. So we're going to talk about a knife grind that I absolutely love. And I'm just a little plug for my design. I absolutely love, and I have another one here. Let me grab another one because we're going to plug the company too. And the company I'm about to tell you about is amazing. They're making my new production folding knife. So we're going to talk about Convex, which has a ton of cutting power. The really, really cool thing, so this is a full convex. So basically this is radiused. So I don't know how well you can see it, but this is curved. It's the exact opposite of a hollow grind. And the thing about this is one of the things about, because a traditional like Japanese style hollow grind is that spoon grind. This is another one. Full convex. So this is from the edge all the way down. Now this does have a secondary bevel. I did sharpen it. I may eventually take this out to the grinder and put it on a conditioning belt and just remove enough of the material on a slack belt to get that back down to a full 0. But I used this a lot and I wanted to test it because this is my prototype. The thing about a convex is that's the same grind. That's the same grind that we're on. Chef knives are convex. No, they're usually flat or hollow. And I don't recommend a convex for a kitchen knife. And we'll talk about why. For a lot of your day-to-day cutting tasks, Bobby G, they're typically just flat grind, and you don't need a convex. It adds extra work to making the kitchen knife. Flat grinds are usually better. They slice, they're thinner. They slice through pretty much everything consistently, as opposed to like some things this doesn't work well with. The thing with a convex is it's like an apple seed. So as you're cutting, it's the same thing that the Japanese samurai swords, they were full convex all the way down to the spine. As you're cutting with this, you've got this really nice thin behind the edge and a lot of material to support it. So they're very strong grinds. They're very, very strong at the edge. You can get them stupid sharp because they're nice and thin. And as you're cutting, it pushes material out of the way. There's less friction. A flat grind does have more friction on it with certain things. As you get to here, it's already started to, like boat wake, push stuff out of the way. And so it pushes material out of the way. Now, it works really good for some stuff, but if you're cutting cheese, this is not the knife you really went for cutting cheese, I will tell you for a fact, the full convex on this is a bit much for that. But they really do well as bushcraft knives. Like this. This is another convex. So that is convexed from the origin of the grind. Yeah, it's I just said, Mo, I sharpened that. That's my prototype. I was testing it. And I got news for you. A lot of convexes come with a secondary edge. Just because it's a convex doesn't mean it has to be a 0. This is the Bark River knives. It's really good at what it does, because the fact is, with it being really thin behind the edge, when you do sharpen it or strop it, you don't remove a lot of material. You don't have to. They're easy to maintain. They're easy to touch up. They stay really good and strong behind that edge, so you're not having to sharpen it. It's a very, very stable edge. Now, there aren't a lot of folding knives that have a convex. Like I said, this one's really pronounced because I don't know what the secondary is on it. I sharpen by hand and I don't measure angles, Mo. This one has been stropped, so that's not actually a secondary bevel. That's just it's a little bit, well, I guess it kind of is a secondary, I guess. I really hadn't paid attention, but yeah, this is EDP 189. So the nice thing about that is that Appleseed grind makes it a very, very strong knife. It's not going to have anywhere, even like we talked about knives and how they get thin. You can crack the edge of this back into here, depending on how brittle the steel is and what you're doing with it. Like Rex 121 is an extremely, extremely hard steel. It's got a bunch of stuff in it, and I've seen people that with a thin flat grind on some of their Spydercos in Rex 121 or Maximet, they put a little bit of linear pressure on it and then they break a big chunk out of their knife. The one in the middle, you mean this one? This is my prototype. This is the prototype of my knife that's coming from KATSU. Same brand as this. Guys, if you're interested in any of these, 10% off at KATSU Knives. Coupon code crazysharp. It's all one word. Oh, wow, this is easy to do right here. There we go. We'll get rid of that. So convex knives they're uncommon in folding knives. Now, they are pretty common in a lot of the bushcraft outdoor knives. As a matter of fact, I think all the Bark Rivers are, yeah, it's called an Appleseed or an axe grind. Bark River knives, I think all of theirs are, and you can see it really pronounced on this one that it's radiused all the way down. It's basically the mirror image of a hollow grind, which we're going to talk about hollow grinds in a little bit. But these are incredibly good for a lot of outdoor tasks. They're good for doing stuff like feather sticking and stuff like that, because on materials like wood and cardboard and things like that, like I said, they push material out of the way. On gummier, softer stuff, not so much. Now, I do know, having taken Japanese martial arts, taken Japanese swordsmanship, I should say, it's definitely good with flesh, because it does the same thing. It moves that material out of the way and it cuts deeper. It allows less friction and cuts deeper. You don't get as much with a flat grind. It has a tendency to, with flesh, you get more friction because more contact with the blade. Which handles look slippery? This one? The handles on this are absolutely not slippery, and I'll tell you why. All of those little pieces right there are a little bit taller than the underlying material. It's a really, really good grip on this. And the fact is, the way this handle is shaped, even if it is slippery, I'm not coming up and over. People put a lot of stock in it. They're like, oh, well, if your hands are all bloody and this and that. And I was like, one, if I'm hunting and my hands are bloody, I'm probably got a different knife, because that means I'm skinning. This isn't something I would carry as a combat knife or a tactical knife, which would have a grip more akin to this. And the fact these really aren't that slippery. These carbon fiber ones, a little bit slipperier than the others, but like I said, also with this one, I'm really locked in on this. There's no chance With this, I made it this way, so you've got a fatter area back here where you're locked in, and then it's got the big finger guard here. Even if you're all the way up on that, you're locked in. That knife's not coming out of your hand. This one could be, but the things I would be using this knife for, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to use it. This thing is beautiful. I love that gold fat carbon fiber that they used on these. So, oh, and KATSU knives, their action is so good. Was this Limbo Knife and Tool just got a Bravo 1.4 rampless with that sheath. Refer something different, keeping it pristine for sailor trade. Are you talking about this sheath? I don't necessarily like this sheath. I like this knife, but I don't ever carry it. This was a gift, just so you guys know. The reason this knife doesn't look like it's ever been used is because it's never been used. It's been, I think I cut some paper with it, maybe a little bit of cardboard. This was a gift to the channel. I don't necessarily like the sheath. This was given to me by a guy, and it's just beautifully done. So this is red ruby frost dragon scale with cherry red linen liners and mosaic pins. No, I don't have a Chris. What is it with people? Like, every time I do one of these, somebody asks if I have a Chris knife. I do not. They're not useful. So yeah, convex grinds are insanely good for a lot of things. Except, like I said, if you're cutting something soft and gummy like cheese, it's not so good. But really, to tell you the truth, the best thing for that is going to be a wire cheese cutter. What's your opinion on executive folding knives, those thin knives? I don't, like, if I was an executive, you're not going to see me carry something in my pocket. This would be what I would carry. So I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Are you talking about gentleman's folders? This is what I would be carrying. This is what I would be carrying. This is the stag-handled Rosecraft knives, Sweetwater Creek Senator. When do you think the prototype will release? So here's the thing. I'm still in the testing phase on this. There's things I want to change. So this could be a little while. I want to change a couple things here. There's a little shop spot there. I don't like the logo. I don't like the company name being on here. I don't mind the logo. I don't like the company name on there. And I think that this choil is just a little bit too big. Even for me with big hands, it's too big. And you could have more cutting surface. You'd have that much more cutting surface. I don't think, so I've already got some things. This design, and like I said, that's how the prototype process works. Sometimes they get it right the first time. When they sent me this prototype for this design, when Artisan sent me this, no changes. No changes. They sent me these prototypes and they're like, tell us what you think, then we'll make changes. I was like, don't change anything, start shipping them. This, not so much. The knife that I did with Wii, not so much. Just a couple changes. Cody Broadway, I'm interested in the KATSU knife. Is that similar to Rockstead? I have had a couple Rocksteads. The fact is, I don't think I would buy a Rockstead for the price. These are 300. So this is ZDP 189 at 67 Rockwell, the same as a Rockstead. I use the shit out of this. I'm not afraid of using it. This is $300 something, and I'm not afraid to use it because they sent me this. Ali, I would follow the channel because the fact is this is probably where you're going to get notified of the release. This, in my opinion, beats a Rockstead because I'm not afraid to use it. It does have a pocket clip. It's easy to carry. It's comfortable. And you get all the good things you get out of a Rockstead out of this at a quarter of the price. Not even a quarter of the price. Less than a quarter of the price. And it's in beautiful fat carbon fiber. So, and you can save 10%, Cody. You can save 10% with coupon code crazysharp, all one word, at KATSU Knives on everything they sell. So they have multiple versions of it. They have a full, if you don't like the ladder style Damascus, the ZDP Core Damascus on this. You can get just plain ZDP 189. They have one of these that is in 154 CM. They have one that's in D2, carbon fiber handles, all kinds of stuff. Just check out their website. They have them in different colors. So at $300 something, if you save 10%, at least you're getting, you're paying for your shipping. And they're easy to work with. They're great folks. And they're not Chinese. They're in Hong Kong, which is different, even though Hong Kong now is owned by China, but it's called the Special Commerce Zone. So it's not China, but it is. It is and it isn't. It's weird. Traditional Japanese blade that was on my desk. I don't know which. Oh, you talking about this? Or we're going to talk about that right now. We are going to talk about that right now. So this is another, I appreciate I got my Only Integral with your Crazy Sharp coat. The Ray, yeah, 40% off. Still works over there at Beyond EDC Knives. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Oh shit, I need to start putting that back into videos. I have of course I do. It's a silly question. I have several. So the next blade grind that is absolutely insane, and I've made a few knives with this grind. I don't have any of my customs that I made. It's a chisel grind. And more accurately, it's the traditional Japanese spooned chisel grind. So this is a Japanese woodworking knife. And I can't, for fuck's sake, cannot think of the name of these knives, as I've made knives like this. Kiradashi. So it's a traditional Japanese kiradashi. So this was my father-in-law's. He's a master carpenter. This was his. It has his name on it. This is like a 60, 70-year-old knife, right? And he was going through stuff. He's like, oh, I'm going to get rid of this. Because at the time he also owned a hardware store where they sold stuff like this. When he was out working on jobs, because it was my wife's mom and dad were just starting out. So they had both. And so he was working on job sites, doing woodworking as a apprentice carpenter. And this was his, and he took it directly from the store because the sticker that was on here originally was from their store. This is a chiseled grind. However, if you look, it's spooned, and there's a reason for that, right? In a typical chisel, it's fully flat across the back, and so when you sharpen a chisel, you put most of your work in on this side. So you're doing that work, and then you do a couple quick passes just to remove the burr. Now, this is probably the sharpest fucking thing I've ever owned, right? My father-in-law is also the one that taught me how to use Japanese water stones, because I lived in Japan for 13 years. This is nuts. And the reason that they're spooned out on the back is, for this particular knife, is it allows you to do that removal of material here without needing to remove material, and you don't really so much change the overall thickness of the blade. I don't know what Bobby, I've said it probably 10 times in this video. I don't measure angles. I freehand sharpen, and I don't measure angles, and all of my edges are convex edges at the front. I have no idea what the angle is on this. I don't even know, but it's ridiculous sharp. That's a question that you would have to ask someone with an angle block that could tell you, that could measure it for you. I've never once measured angles. That's why I never did. I have Tontos, but I have a traditional Japanese Tonto, but it's all the way upstairs and I'm not going to get it. So that's a chisel grind, and chisel grinds kind of do eliminate the issue that you get with a flat grind, where that blade continues to thicken, because it's only ground on one side, and then you just only are removing a burr off the back. You don't really get into thicker steel because you sharpen this entire thing. If you were to look, that does not have a secondary bevel. That is a true zero chisel. As a true zero chisel grind, there is no edge bevel. This is laminated steel, so you are seeing two different steels. But that comes down, and I've never sharpened this. I did sharpen this once. And then you just knock the burr off the back side of that, and it allows you to have a very, very crazy, crazy sharp edge. So that's what that, but then people started using that grind, and it's not anything new. This is the Counterattack 2, and it has that same spoon on the back. Now, the reason that this has it is not the same reason as this. This is based off of military technology years and years and years and years and years and years and years past, hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of years ago, because people realized that this pierced better. Because what you wind up with is this unique, almost delta tip on this that pierces incredibly well and then leaves a very broad wound track. But because of the shape, it pierces really well, but it leaves a very, very broad, almost delta wing aircraft wound channel. But the same thing applies when I sharpened this. It was really easy because this sets its own angle, and then you basically just knock the burr off the back side. But this isn't a knife that I'm going to use for slashing. It's sharp, don't get me wrong, it'd cut. It's not going to be the kind of cutting you're going to do with a lot of knives. I love to hate Emerson knives. I love Ernie, I just don't like his knives. So you guys know I've talked shit about Ernie Emerson knives for years. I love Ernie, I just don't like his knives. Ernie's just like, I just don't like him. I know some people do. That's not a knock. Like, if you like Ernie's knives, that's amazing. Good for you. And like I said, please buy him. I love Ernie. He's a great dude, and I wish him all the success. I'm just not so much a fan of his V-ground blade with a chiseled edge. And I don't like, yeah, they're left-handed chisel. So like this is how I want this knife as a right-handed. But if you get an Ernie Emerson, it's ground exactly backwards. And so for me being right-handed, it doesn't cut the way I want. This is set to cut exactly the way I want. This is set to cut exactly the way I want. If I'm left-handed, I use this side. But what you get with Ernie's knives is they go in like this. I don't dig it. So this is how I would want a chisel ground edge, and that's how I made mine. And so when I made custom, I have a blade blank. I'll show you what they look like. I have a blade blank laying over here because I still owe a guy one of these knives. And this is a blank that I was just using to test carbide bits and things like that. And I was just messing around with. But what I would do is, after heat treat like this, I would grind it right-handed or I would grind it left-handed. It just depended on what the customer, I'd ask the customer, are you right-handed or left-handed? And so that was just how it always wound up being done. And yes, hey, here we go. For somebody who was asking, I have an Americanized Tonto right here, but I have a traditional Japanese Tonto upstairs. It was the one my wife carried at our wedding. It's in my safe. So, holy crap, I didn't think this was going to happen. Apparently 17,000 people have viewed this live feed so far. Yes, Knives and Pizza. I have not gotten to see one. I've heard people say good things about them Knives and Pizza. I have not gotten to see one. So I'm taking my hat off. I don't know why I'm wearing my hat. I'm not filming face down. So, but like I said, this kind of gets past the problem you have with flat ground knives where they thicken up over time. I mean, these still will. Any knife's going to, but there is a one blade grind that absolutely overcomes it better than any grind out there. And I think you guys are going to know what I'm talking about. It's the hollow grind. And why is it so good? Hollow grinds are great. Now, to a point, they do have some negatives. Now I know why I have my hat on. It's only 58 degrees out here in the studio. And I had my hat on because my head was cold because, well, I don't have very much hair. This is a hollow ground Chris Reeves Sebenza. You can see it's the exact opposite of our convex. So this blade goes in like this up to the edge. And that, so is this one. Well, yes and no. This one is hollowed back here. So what that gets you is you get this really thin behind the edge profile, right? You get this really nice behind the edge profile, nice and thin, but as you sharpen, it stays thin because the material, as a matter of fact, on this knife gets thinner the further you go back, right? I can sharpen this for a lot of years till I get to about here, when I'm going to need to replace that blade at that point anyway. I get back to here, that's when I'm going to need to start looking at thinning this edge out. I have not gotten to the point yet, because as I sharpen this in the future, over the years, this will actually get thinner behind the edge as I go back. You can still feel that is a little thicker. It gets thinner back here. That means that this knife can be sharpened and sharpened and sharpened and sharpened and sharpened, and I'm not going to start getting into thicker steel. Now, this one is even more pronounced on how hollow it is. Like, that is very, very thin. And it stays that way to here. So even though Alex over at Steingraber Knives, with this really thin behind the edge flat grind, where it stays thin pretty far back, it's going to get into thicker steel way faster than a hollow grind will over time. It just works so well for so much. However, it does have some limitations, as does any grind. This had limitations with certain things. This has a problem. Hollow grinds have a problem. Unless it's a full hollow, which I did do a full hollow. There is no spine ridge. I did a full hollow on a knife for a buddy of mine. Technically, it would be like a double hollow. This, when you cut into stuff, it cuts, and then it is such a rapid transition up that spine. You can see it. It's such a rapid transition that stuff gets in there and it jams up. You will get, for some things, a problem where material binds up where it starts to transition up. Now, I really don't have too many problems with that, but yeah, you can see right there where that rapid transition starts up, and it will catch on things and it will add some friction. But, oh yeah, I did the ano on this, guys, by the way. That is, can you see the bronze underneath? It's meant to look like, can you see the bronze? It's meant to look like patinaed copper. And I did that myself. I anodized this myself. What's your opinion on titanium blade with a tungsten carbide edge? Garbage. Tungsten carbide should not be used in a knife. It's hard to sharpen. It's terrible. It's a mess. It's like ceramic. There are some things that just shouldn't be used in a knife. I'm sure it has its place, but for me, they're garbage. They don't serve any purpose. I don't like the tungsten carbide blades. There's the Sandrin knives. I sharpened one of those for a guy. It took forever. It cost more than it should have, and it would have just been cheaper for him to buy a new knife in an actual material that was meant for being in a knife. Tungsten carbide works really, really well for mill bits and things like that in a CNC. Not great for in a knife. Sorry, I'm getting a drink of water. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different grinds out there, and the topics that we talk about here they're always fun. You can get a flat grind on a broad knife. You can get it super thin behind the edge. You can get it super thin behind the edge, and it'll stay that way for a long time. And if you have a lot of knives and you're not carrying, like literally, I have 500 knives easy. I don't carry any one knife. Well, that's not true. I had to stop carrying this knife. I had to force myself to stop carrying this knife because I carried it so much that I was using it, and I was abusing it, and it was going to wind up getting... This is another knife I did a full custom ano on. Two-tone blue ano on this. I was using this knife so much that I was actually changing the blade profile. And, I mean, it's supposed to look like that, right? But... It's supposed to be recurved like that, but I was actually getting to the point where I was sharpening it too often, and you can see where I was getting into the grind lines on this. So I stopped carrying this so much. This one is 1790. I picked a specific one. I wanted after double stop pins, but before steel lock bar inserts, and it had to be a honeycomb, reverse honeycomb, because you can get that cool two-tone electric blue ano on that, where you have lighter blue in the low spots and then darker blue. And then I orange peeled the pocket clip. So I can't ever resell this. I wouldn't ever resell this. This is, god damn it, now this is going in my pocket. It's in my pocket. That's where it's gonna stay. I just won't use it. I'll make sure I'll use it for light things, but I was using it for fucking everything. Everything. I didn't want the lock bar insert. It changed the feel of the knife. I've gotten to handle enough of them. At one point, John Grimsmo would send people my direction. If you were a US customer, you got my contact info if you reached out to them for sharpening service. And so I didn't like the way that the lockup felt or the way it sounded with the lock bar insert. I haven't had any problems with this with deformation. I haven't had any lock walk over. I don't have any blade play. I don't have any lock stick. I'm perfectly fine with the way this knife is. And the fact is, I don't heavy use it enough that I would really need to worry about doing the damage. I used it a lot, but I wanted it to be stupid sharp. So every time I use it, I'd wind up sharpening it like once every 2 weeks. So such a good knife. It's just got a different feel and sound than any other knife. It looks different, it feels different, it sounds different. To quote Blue Thunder, she don't look normal, she don't fly normal, because she ain't normal. I don't know if you guys have ever watched that movie. Great movie. I absolutely love this knife. I saved for 5 years to buy this knife, and I bought exactly the one I want. Great thing, I know we're kind of off topic. Great thing about the guys over at Grimsmo Knives, they literally have, I did not buy this knife directly from them. I bought this knife off the secondary market. I am friends with John and Eric. I've talked to them a bunch of times. They know I did not buy, and it's not because I'm friends. They do this for other people too. They do not care if you buy this knife secondhand. If you need a new screw, you need a new set of bearings, they will send it to you. You need a stop pin, they send it to you. I replaced the stop pin in this knife. I had lost a screw somehow. I don't think I got it in tight enough and a screw fell out. And I also screwed up and I put the bearings in it. This is funny. So I had used this knife when we were moving to this house, and it had gotten really dirty, and I took the bearings out and I put them in a little ramekin full of rubbing alcohol, and I put them on the back of the sink. And my wife didn't know what it was. She dumped it down into the garbage disposal. She washed the ramekin and ran the garbage disposal, and I had to get new bearings, and they sent them to me. Did I get it off Blade Forums? No. I have a friend that works at I can't tell you where he works, but they take knives on consignment. And he knew exactly what I was looking for. And he goes, do I put this on the website or do I pack it up and send it to you? And I was like, pack that bitch up and send it to me. So it did not come to me. No, not Knife Center. It came to me secondhand. I paid with tax, shipping, and insurance. I paid just about $1,000, which says a lot for this knife that has taken its place as my new favorite, because this knife, where did I put it? It's in my pocket, that's why. This is a $300 knife that has replaced this as my favorite knife. This was my favorite knife of all time. This now has replaced it. And it's absolutely because this is such an incredible knife. Like it's so good. And the fact that Microtech has been able to lower their prices over the last few years instead of increasing like every other American knife maker has, just speaks leaps and bounds to what they're willing to do, what they're doing, and their quality has increased while their prices have gone down. A lot of people don't like Tony. A lot of people don't like Microtech. I am not one of those people. I absolutely am Not one of those people. I'm friends with Tony, but it has nothing to do. This knife, like I said, I got one of these in for review. I carried it for like a week. I did a sharpening on it. I did a disassembly and I liked it. I had to buy one. I was like, fuck, I got to buy one. And so I dipped into some funds that I've been saving for something else and I got myself one. And I went with the aluminum because like if you like aluminum, Microtech does about the best aluminum. I did drop this. I'm kind of disappointed. I dropped it a little bit. What does a knife absolutely need to have to make it a good knife? Comfort. Okay, so here's the 3 things I look at. First of all, is it a functional blade that I'm going to use? Like, is it a blade shape that's going to fit my needs? If no, it's a game stopper. 2, it's got to be comfortable in hand. And after that, like those are the 2 things for me. It's case in point here. Blade shape I love. Does it cut well? Is it comfortable? Yes, it's great. Then for me, it's a win. Those are the 2 things it must have. After that, I start looking at what's the materials, handle material and things like that. Like if I have a choice, I'm going to pick specific things. But it absolutely has to have 2 elements. It's got to cut well and meet my needs. Like if the blade shape isn't what let's talk about one here that like I wouldn't buy this. If I hadn't been given this knife, I would not have bought it. It 100% is a karambit. This doesn't get me anywhere. Right? Absolutely don't like this knife. I mean, I like the knife for what it is. It's a cool knife. But the blade shape isn't what I want. It doesn't matter whether it cuts. Is the blade shape something I want? Is it going to do what I want? I can't use this for very many tasks. I have another knife that's almost identical that I don't carry very often, and it's the same thing. So what it must have is the ability to cut and comfort in hand, because a knife is a tool, and at the end of the day, I typically don't care about steel too much. Like I do have some preferences in steel. I'm not a big fan of Nitro V. I'm not a fan a lot of H1, things like that. So steel does start to fall into the things. That is not a Sebenza knockoff. I would never, okay. This is what I'm gonna talk. I would never recommend a knockoff. I fucking absolutely hate knockoffs. I'm friends with so many knife makers. The fact is a knockoff is stealing their intellectual property, and if you are buying knockoffs, then you are part of the problem. This is 100% a real Chris Reeve Sebenza. So RWL 34, great steel. That's what's in this one, RWL 34. I absolutely would never, ever recommend. Like, so like I'm friends with Bastian at Brestinelli Knives. I'm friend with Tony and some of the guys of his crew over at Microtech. I've talked with Tim over at TCal Knives. I know Ramon Chavez personally. I'm friends with the Grimsmo brothers. I'm friends with Chris and Elliot Williamson at Farm Forge Knife Works. I was a knife maker. People have knocked off my design. I mean, you can look at it as flattery, but the fact is when you take someone's design and you completely duplicate it, then you've stolen their property. You're stealing from them, because what happens is people will take, say, this knife, okay? Because this is, I think these are $450, $475 now. When I bought this, they were $410, I believe. I don't like Magna Cut steel all that much. These were like $410, $420 when I bought this one. I had one before. I sold it, immediately regretted it, bought a new one. This is a large 21 in S35 VN. If you buy this knife, people will buy this knife thinking they're going to get something that's good. They're going to get a bad experience, and they're going to talk shit about the actual knife. That's one problem. And then they drive down sales. The other thing is people will get a knockoff based on the fact that this is an incredible design, and they will get a knockoff, and then they basically are stealing money out of the mouths of knife makers. And having been a knife maker, You don't make shit when you make a custom knife. I made, when I would make custom knives, here's one of the ones I made. I made this one for my daughter for a gift. If I sold this knife for $450, I made about $50, if that. You got a 10-hour day in heat treat. You got to make the handles. I made the pins that are on this. You got to do the grind. You got to do all that stuff. And it just winds up, you don't make any money. And then if someone is taking your design and copying it and making it at a fraction of the price out of shitty materials, one, people will get it and think they're getting the real thing, and they get ripped off. And then you get a bad name because they're basing their opinions of your product off of a fake. And then if people are buying a cheaper, poorly made version, they're stealing money, they're stealing food out of your mouth because, oh, well, why would I buy the $800 version of this knife when I can buy it for $70 on Alibaba or Temu? Familiar with the schnitzel? I have to tell you guys, what do you use to sharpen a Spenza? I use flat sharpening stones. You can go find any of my sharpening videos. You can see how I sharpen knives. It's the same from knife to knife. I use just all the same things. So if you find any of my sharpening videos, and the counterfeits don't have time and effort invested like the original maker. Exactly. I put years into what I wanted. I literally put 2 years into the design of this knife. There's my, I knew I had another one somewhere. I knew I had another one somewhere. I can call my buddy back, tell him that I figured out where it went. I designed this knife. I didn't like the combat knives we were given. I wanted something that was more utilitarian, but still could be used as a combat knife. I go into my email one day and somebody sends me an email saying, hey, did you drop the price of your knife design? I was like, well, I don't control that. We Knife Company does. And so this is a discontinued knife now. And he goes, it's like $30 on Amazon. I go and I look, they had these images of my knife, including the maker's mark right there, my knife design logo. And they were selling it for $30. And so I had to get a hold of We Knife Company because Amazon would not take the posting down based on the fact that I was the knife designer. The company that made it had to do it. And so there's counterfeits of these rolling around, which took second place for best new tactical knife or best new fig. I think this was the second place for best new tactical knife at Blade Show West, the first one in Portland, or second one in Portland. So, but yeah, I don't like talking about clones and knockoffs gets me spun up. Now there's some minor exceptions. Replica knives are different. Like this, if you're not trying to sell it as the actual item, like this is a replica, a licensed replica of the Rambo First Blood knife that was done by Jimmy Lyle. So this isn't a knockoff. This is a replica. I also have a replica of the my hat. It's right here. I have a replica of the life support system by Jack Crane. Now, if this was a clone, I wouldn't be as upset about it because apparently, from everything I understand, Jack Crane turned into a piece of shit in his later years and took thousands and thousands of dollars of people's money and then just never delivered a knife. But still, this is not a clone. It's a replica. It doesn't even have his logos and markings on it. And it's a movie replica. It even has the movie name, the name of the movie on it. But guys, I am going to end this. As much as I dig the fact we've got 110 people watching and this live feed has currently had 20,000 views, I do have to end this. My shoulder's really starting to hurt and I don't feel great today. And plus, I have a bunch of other stuff I need to do. I got to clean up the studio and I probably should film a couple videos today. So guys, I have a Severtech Spartan from the maker. So yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I just want to talk about, and like I said, EDC fixed blades. If you find one you like, really dig into it. And if you didn't catch that part of the live, you can go back and there will be a video coming where I compare this big boy, which that's what it's called, this is the PMP big boy, to a knife that is very, very similar, allow me to grab it right now, to the knife that like my buddy loves it and I don't. I find, and it's not a clone, it's not a knockoff, it's very similar. This is the Shirogorov that is very, very similar. They're really similar. I find this to be better at a quarter of the price. So, absolutely love this knife. Absolutely love it. I like this enough, I bought one for my buddy as a birthday present. Guys, I'm out of here. I love you all. Take it easy. Make sure you check out the channel. Make sure if you're not subscribed that you subscribe. And I will see you all in the video that goes up tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. I put up videos Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Full-length content. So, guys, I'm out of here. I love you all, and I'll talk to you later.